This is HERkys Voice, a conversation with special Hawkeye guests focusing on the stories and people behind Hawkeye athletics. Now, here's the host of HERkys Voice, Iowa women's tennis coach, Sasha Schmid.
Welcome to HERkys Voice. This week, we get to feature a conversation I had a couple weeks ago during Hall of Fame weekend celebration. I had the chance to sit down with the 2022 Hall of Fame inductees, Amy Fowler and Kari. Amy played field hockey at the University of Iowa, and Kari was a member of our softball program. I had a great time catching up with these two and talking about their journey to Iowa, their playing days, incredible highlights from their career, any advice they'd give the current Hawks, and overall, their pride in the University of Iowa. Welcome to HERkys Voice. Today, I have the honor of sitting down with two of our 2022 Hall of Fame inductees. Two awesome women who I actually know were the same era. I'm so excited. I don't know what that means about me or you guys, but here we are.
We're old.
Yeah,
that's what that means. We have gray hair.
Getting old. It seems like just yesterday when we were here running around campus together. So, Amy, three-time All-American, first team honors in 91 and 92, and you were a Big Ten honoree in 90. 91, 92, you were selected as the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year.
Just one of those years.
Let me just bring Kari in with a few of her stats so we can kind of hype her up here a little bit too before we get going.
We can.
So, three-time All-American, four-time All-Region, first team All-Big Ten selection from 94 to 97, named Big Ten Freshman of the Year in 94. Remember that? Yeah. Led Iowa to 3 straight Women's College World Series appearances. And this kind of blows my mind. You hold school records for games played, at-bats, hits, and RBIs. Holy schmoly.
I'm actually surprised they haven't been broken. So I thought records are supposed to be meant to be broken, right? So
I mean, that's incredible, that's awesome. Honestly. But you can see how with those types of stats, you obviously were an incredible softball player, but you also stayed away from your athletic trainer with Amy, because I think you saw a lot of games under your belt.
Yeah, definitely with the injury, depending on your position, pitchers had, shoulder problems, back problems. I was at a relatively first base. I wasn't diving, like the shortstop or second baseman, even outfielders running into walls. So, yeah. I mean, it was probably the position, but I was obviously avoided injury. I had my ACL surgery. I came in with that my freshman year, and I had the surgery after my freshman year was over with. And luckily I was able to get rid of the brace. And at that point I felt so free and just kind of like, all right, let's go.
I want to hear about both of your recruiting stories. How did you choose Iowa?
My recruiting story is probably a little bit different because I was actually being recruited to play basketball when I was sophomore. So I thought, basketball, softball I wasn't really being recruited. And plus it's in the summer. So, and then once I, hurt my knee, it was like, okay, that went away. So then it was like, well, I'm going to concentrate on softball. Not that I didn't concentrate on all of it, but then, Coach Blevins came out and started recruiting me. I went on a recruiting visit. And to be honest with you, I heard the stories of, recruiting with the men's. Oh, we go out and party, we do this and that. And then when I got here, I'm like, nope, you do this. And so it was kind of an eye-opening. And I'm like, wait, this is kind of cool. So eventually then I did get the offer to come play. And I was like, absolutely. It was, I didn't think twice about it.
And no other schools were in the running?
No.
Wow.
And I think a lot had to do with my injury.
Yeah.
It was, but I elected not to have that surgery because I didn't want to miss a sport during my high school, days. And, that probably didn't help me. But back then for that surgery, it was over a year of rehab, which would have taken me out of at least 2 sports. And I was able to adapt with a brace on. And, obviously when I got here, the course of action was after my freshman year, we're doing the surgery. And then that's exactly what happened. And And then I actually was able to play a year of basketball after the softball. So everything worked out.
Wow.
So my recruiting was fairly easy when it, with dealing with, obviously Coach Blevins, and she's amazing person, coach, it was a fantastic experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun to hear. Okay. Amy, how about yours?
Well, my uncle was a teacher at the high school that I ended up graduating from. And when I was little, I would go to football games and be around a lot of the sporting events. And he had a student who was just getting close to finishing her high school career, played field hockey, and was going to Iowa. And this is like, to me, it seems like 100 years ago. But Ellen Egan was her name, and she was a family friend of ours, and my uncle taught her. And Ellen was like, one day, she's like, oh, Amy, don't ever forget about Iowa. Like, nobody thinks about it, but you got to remember. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I was barely even playing field hockey. I think she just mentioned it as Iowa's a great school. You should consider it. Don't stay here on the East Coast where everybody, because I'm from New Jersey. And so, fast forward, it's not like I saw Ellen all the time. I knew who she was. I knew she played right before Iowa won their one and only national championship in '86. And, here I am. I'm playing soccer my whole life. I love soccer. I love basketball. I'm 5'0". I'm not playing basketball in college. Soccer was not what it is today. And my mom was like, why don't you play field hockey? I played field hockey. There's more opportunities in college. So I said, well, I don't want to wear a skirt. So I almost didn't play because of the outfit. And I grew up playing baseball. And I didn't want to switch to softball because I was like, I've been playing with the boys my whole life. And I'm as good, if not better than them. And I didn't feel like I needed to play the girls' version of the sport. So my brain of Title IX as a high school kid or even a middle school kid was like, if I can do it, why can't I play? So we didn't have girls soccer in middle school. We didn't have girls soccer in high school. So it is by default that I ended up playing field hockey. Kind of like Harry,
Seriously,
weird
both
that
of
you were
guys.
I didn't even think about it. I didn't grow up. Now kids start at 4 or 5 years old. I mean, historically, European countries and other
and
countries
also,
start
too,
early.
Now they concentrate on one sport, which I think is bad for just the growth. The different muscles and everything gets used. So if you just concentrate on softball or field hockey growing up, it's like, well, what happens if you get hurt and you didn't try something else or it doesn't work out? At least there's a fallback there. So I think today's kids are just so focused on getting that scholarship in one sport.
Yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Coming from a coaching perspective for 26 years.
I also think that with both of you guys, playing multi-sport athletes, definitely a natural athleticism, a love for being physical, and also I'm curious what developed in you throughout playing multiple sports to be able to have that championship culture, confidence, aggressive mentality that I think you both brought to your sports when you got here. Because I mean, there's highs and lows, and you got to be able to have a career over 4 years or 5 years extended. You've got to be able to handle some low moments.
I think same long story as what Amy was saying, how she grew up playing sports. I was the same way. I played with the boys. I mean, when I was in junior high, all the boys wanted to play me in basketball, and I would beat them. Same thing with started playing baseball before I played softball, but eventually it was my mom's like, well, and ironically, the coach that I had for baseball, he had a daughter that played softball. He's like, you need to really now, because there was nowhere to go and for baseball for women at the time, and this was in Pee Wees. So that's where I got into the whole softball. But story that my mom told me is I had a best friend who was my age, and he lived right around the corner, and we did everything, played wiffle ball, whatever, all the time. And he signed up for basketball. And I go, Mom, I want to play basketball with Ryan, was his name. She's like, well, you can't because he's a boy. And I says, well, then I'm not playing. I flat out refused. And she's like, she signed me up anyway. And that was how it kind of all started with the whole sports thing.
How interesting is that? So with you guys feeling like you just had a pull to sports at very young ages and found your way to Iowa, and whether you knew it or not when you arrived at this campus, I certainly didn't when I was a freshman in 1992. I had no idea what type of special women's leadership was here in terms of giving us this opportunity.
I would say for me, I had a little history with what I thought I was getting myself into because Iowa was cutting edge field hockey. They were like the best of the best. And I just told the team today, or earlier at a practice that I got to hang out at, that they don't know what they have access to and what kind of exceptional experience they're actually having in this moment until it's like gone and they're not in it anymore. And I would say for me, the like just bringing back like the why I came here because I felt like when I met my coaching staff, which was a hodgepodge of people, Beth was on the road with the U.S. team. Michelle Madison had been here. Liz Chu had been here, who was an alum. Janet Ryan. And I mean, Chewy just texted me before coming out for my Hall of Fame weekend. And she's like, enjoy every moment. She's one of the first 3 people to be into the Hall of Fame for field hockey. Iconic was part of the national championship team. And she's like, just enjoy every moment. And I remember her recruiting me in South Jersey. I remember her being here when I got here. And she was like, I just couldn't, I was like, I'm not worthy. Like, I can't believe I'm here, but I know what I was becoming a part of. It was just a culture and a tradition that was built from day one when Dr. Grant got here. And that was specific to the sport because she also coached field hockey. But what she was able to do and the team that she built around her of strong administrative females and males that were all part of building a female athletic department in combination with a very strong men's department, it was like, I couldn't believe that I was actually having access to what I had access to. And when I left and actually became a coach somewhere else, then you really, I mean, it was like so dramatically different at other places, and the stories you would hear and what other people's like student athlete experience was compared to mine. And I was kind of like that. It was almost laughable how well Iowa did it and how other people tried to chase that.
And it was very structured. I mean, Gail was like, you got to make sure, you got class at this time, you got to get to practice. It was, I think that was a life lesson for me is like, first of all, you got to show up on time, and it's you have to.
And on time is not on time.
That is
on
true.
time is
Yep.
late.
Yep, exactly. So it's like now I can't be late to appointments. I have to leave early because if I'm late, it's like, wait a minute, I was supposed to be here 10 minutes ago. So it's a time management, and also you learn so many valuable things. And a lot of it has nothing to do with the sport.
Yeah. Interesting. Amy was coming into a culture that had just recently won a national championship, was in Final Fours, and had reached that elite level within women's collegiate field hockey. Kari, you were a part of moving softball
Correct.
to that
Yes.
level and starting that tradition here. Talk a little bit about what that was like.
I mean, to be honest, my freshman year, and Amy can attest to this, I thought we were good enough to make it to regionals that year. We were young, but I feel we had a shot at least. But they only took one team out of the Big Ten that year, which I think is, to my recollection, it was smaller then because I believe there was only 32 teams that advanced. Now it's like 64, so it's a little bit easier to do it. Harder in the aspect you have to win more games. So my freshman year, I think we just were we had 4 freshmen that came in and 3 of us were starting, and we were green. It was almost too big of a stage for us. My sophomore year, we grew a lot. And I think that team, it may not have been as good as my freshman year team because we didn't have the pitching, but our defense was better because we were older. And obviously we brought in Deb Bibble, who's also a Hall of Famer, and that's all it took is one key. And then obviously everyone played their own roles. And that year, I remember after our last game, we lost to Michigan at the Big Ten tournament. And I don't think anyone thought we were going to go to the regionals because basically coach was like, well, chances are, she was very honest and not get our hopes up for anything that was not there. So we were all going and packing and getting ready to go home for the, summer. And all of a sudden we get a phone call at 5:00 in the afternoon or later. And everyone just ran over to Carver because we were one of the last teams in. So it was like, oh wow, this is fun. I don't think we really knew what we were getting into or what we were about to experience. But once we got out there, it was just loosey goosey. Let's have fun. We're not supposed to be here. We went to California of all places. The only there were 3 California teams, and they were all fighting amongst each other because they thought one should host and the other one shouldn't host. So then we obviously made it to the World Series, and I still don't think what we accomplished until we actually got there and we're like, wow. And then at that point forward, it's like, it's not that we didn't want to do it every year, but it just got bigger. It was like, every year we've got to do this. And that's essentially what happened. And with that brought, obviously recruiting as well. People wanted to come, and it just, I don't know, it just got bigger.
And the synergy played off of the different teams. I talk about this a lot. So, it can definitely start with field hockey winning a national championship. But because of that proximity that you were talking about, Amy, where the interactions took place,
Yep.
You had a lot of friends on different teams. Well, we're all competitive. So, heck.
I want to be like field hockey and win.
Right.
I want to go to, the next level. So it's like, you're absolutely right. It's like, well, if they can do it, why can't we?
And basketball.
Yep.
You had friends on basketball, and they're going to Final Four. And
Yeah, Jolette Law and
yeah, it's like, wait
Steph
a minute.
Schuler
Yeah.
and
It didn't
when
matter
Vivian-
the sport. We're
yeah.
all competitive. I mean, we'd be competitive at checkers.
that's exactly right.
I think that reminds me of just being back here in May for Dr. Grant's celebration of life, and the variety of people that spoke about her impact on their coaching careers, their playing careers, their experience in women's athletics in general, but obviously specific to Iowa. I mean, the culture here was like, you win because you work hard, you win because you're dedicated to what you're doing, you're paying attention to the details. I mean, echo what Kari said about learning the lessons of life. I mean, that's what college teaches us. And I think that in and of itself around the department was a paramount piece of coming out of that day that I was here for Dr. Grant, celebrating what she's done. People talked about, and you really felt that the coaching staffs that she brought in,
They were strong, powerful women. Like, I know Gail
they were off
talked as
the
well.
charts, phenomenal people building, and they were all at different stages of what they were able to build, and whether they were female role models. I personally are beyond important in a female athlete's life, but I think there are male athletes and male coaches that impact us strongly as well. So the fact that the female athletes had access to such a high level of concentrated knowledge across the board. I would walk in and out of the training room. We would all run stairs in Carver. You hated it. I mean, that you hated it, but you did it. And volleyball practice was going on, so you're hearing what's going on. You're watching Barb Willis. You're watching all the icons of volleyball. Then basketball would be out there, men or women, and I would watch those guys and be like, whoa, okay, that's cool. I'll bring that to my team. You know what I mean? I think you do that on any campus, but out here, there were the kids that were homegrown from Iowa, born and raised, and this is they were supposed to come here since they were 2 years old. And then there's other teams where we're coming from all over the place. We had kids from California, and they're like, "Oh, I'm go to school in the middle of Iowa. I'm from San Diego. There's no surfing out here."
Gotta buy a winter jacket.
But we all just connected on it was a very special and high level. And I don't think I realized it in the moment. I realized it
Absolutely, I agree.
as I became a coach, as I can look back and watch teams and be like, I remember that.
Stepped out of the box.
Yes,
But you were in the
exactly.
box when we were playing, and you stepped out of it. It's like you see a different perspective. And
absolutely.
to piggyback on what Amy said about other teams, I remember, training in the in Carver Hawkeye. I don't know what we were doing, at the time, but I remember wrestlers. They were on they had one on their back and they're running up the stairs. I'm like, man, this is easy compared to what they're doing. So it's just.
What are some of the biggest lessons that you feel like you learned or you grew here?
I mean, I think I was growing up in Iowa, being homegrown. I honestly got lucky with the coaches that coached me growing up to start with. It wasn't all about winning. It was about having fun, but it was also about fundamentals. And that today, that does, in my opinion, that's just, it's win, win, win at all costs, whatever you got to do. So I think I had an edge on the mental side of it, but when I got here, mentally, that was one thing coach was on. Like, if you're not mentally ready for the game, I don't care how good you're going to be, you're going to make an error, you strike out, you carry it somewhere negative onto somebody else. So I think for me, it's just always staying positive, and I try not to use the word don't. It's do this rather than don't do that. Because if you start thinking negatively, it's just going to snowball into something else. So I think mentally, her being that sort of teacher, and I think pioneering the mental aspect of the game was huge for me, just because you had to be mentally ready and prepared to play. I don't care what sport you're in.
Yeah.
Wow, too many lessons to probably name here, but the big ones for me were I was given an opportunity to come into a program where I knew I was being different than Kari. I was being recruited by a few big-time, Division I places for field hockey, Penn State, Maryland, and that felt like I was staying home and it was comfortable. So I think the first lesson choosing Iowa was getting out of my comfort zone and feeling comfortable with being uncomfortable, which is a harder lesson for some athletes. And if you don't really ever get it, you're probably not the best that you could be. I remember feeling not worthy to step on the field with 5 All-American seniors my freshman year. And I was like, whoa, like if I could just be a quarter of the player that one of those women were for me, I was like, I will kick ass, right? I will be awesome. And I never really felt like I was awesome, but when it was like more of a personal lesson, if Beth didn't give me too much feedback, then I usually took that like,
you were doing something wrong.
Doing okay. No, I'm doing okay. Because if she came over and was like barking in my ear, then I knew I was not doing it right.
I mean, you both really enjoyed your college experience.
I mean, absolutely we did. I mean, if we were losing or had losing seasons, who knows how I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. But it was fun, exciting. It almost leaves me speechless, to be honest with you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, great years. I want to hear about the phone call when you heard you were going into the Hall of Fame.
My phone call was...
I had to go to a voicemail because I didn't recognize the number.
Me too. I thought Iowa was asking me for money, and I was like, I'm between jobs. I'm not calling you back. No, I saw the 319 number, and I saw the message from, it was Katie.
Yeah, I had same message.
And Katie... So I was like, I'm taking my kid. 2 of my kids were in a gymnastics show, and they had to get there early, so... One of us had to drop off early. The other one was like coming so we could watch. So I'm driving in my car, zoning out, and I was like, I missed a call. I was like, girls, quiet down. Mommy has to make a call. So my 2 older kids were there, my 13-year-old and an 8-year-old. And so I call Katie back, and she's like, hi, Amy, I'm going to patch in Nikki Pront. And I was like, what? You got another person asking me for money? I was like, what is going on? And I was like, please, you don't even know. Like literally between jobs, it's okay. You can ask me and I'll give you like $10 right now. So
let me see how many pennies I got in my car.
She calls me, like check the sofa for change. So I call and she's like, I'm going to patch Nikki in. And so I was like, hey, like, how's it going? And I was like, what is this about? And they're like, well, we are so, like, Katie is so, like, she has so much emotion in her voice, which I loved. And she's like, we are ecstatic, like crazy excited to and like let you know that you are entering the class of 2022 for the Hall of Fame. And I was like, what? Yeah. Is this like a joke?
Did you even vote?
Yeah. I didn't, because the voting now goes to my old email that I don't have access to.
Okay.
But Emily did vote. Yeah.
Okay.
But
so you knew about
when
it at
she,
least.
she told me, she's like telling, and I'm just like, my mind was like, what is happening? This is not happening. I was like, I've seen the list. I've been to the Hall of Fame. I see my teammates that are in there. And I'm like, how am I in there with them and all of the other women that I played with? I was like, there's so many people that deserve to be in there. And I bet all of us in each of our sports, as much as you would want to be in yourself, I was like, there's like 15 people I would pick before me. So I could not believe it. And I started, because I get emotional, as I've already done.
Are you going to cry tomorrow?
Maybe. Are you going to cry?
You know, you only get to talk 5 to 10 minutes, right?
We don't get to talk.
At the panel?
Oh, but the panel's like questions.
Yeah, I know.
You're getting off topic.
I know.
Okay.
I wanted to say how much
Bring
we
it
talk.
back. Rein it back in, Kari Knopf. So my kids were in the car, which was what made it, I think, even more emotional and special, because my oldest was like she heard it and it's sinking into her brain differently than it's sinking into mine. I'm just like in this weird space of like, I cannot believe that this is what I'm hearing. And Payson, my oldest, is like grabbing my arm. She's like, Mommy, you're getting it. And she starts crying. And then my other like sort of dead inside child, Evans, is in the back. And she's like, what are you guys crying about? What's going on? What did she say? Because she's like totally oblivious. And then she's like, oh, congratulations, Mommy. Like, it was so easy. And then I called them. And I couldn't even keep it together. I was like, I just got a call. Like, I think it's real. I was like, I'm getting into the Hall of Fame. And she was like, what? So it was like, it was probably one of the highest moments in my life to date, other than having kids. Yeah. And getting married. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
I have kind of the same thing where I'd let it go to voicemail, and then the text came through, we're going to be calling back in 15 minutes. And I'm like, okay. I'm thinking I had a feeling what it was about, because I don't get many calls. You know, the donor, you know, they send them to me in the mail. So I called back, and it was the same thing. Katie was so ecstatic, and I was like, oh my God, are you serious? And they're like, yes, and congratulations. And then I kind of hung up the phone. It was just my mouth dropped. I'm like, wow. And that was, I was stunned.
Oh, wow. How cool. It's a really cool job
awesome.
for Katie.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's like the bearer of good news all the time. Yeah.
That's
Lucky
really
girl.
fun. I mean, I can't even imagine. Probably so many things flash in that moment.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, and so in full disclosure, we're recording this, you know, on the Thursday before we go into the weekend. So we're gonna post this, and this will release, you know, after you guys have been on the field and had your ceremony and had 70,000 fans on Saturday cheering for you. And so, I'd love to talk with you afterwards too, and just get your feedback on it all, because you have all of that to look forward this weekend. And this is just the start of a lot of reflections and chats, and what I think will be one of those weekends that really just kind of stands out in your entire life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. 100%.
And now you're here with family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us about who's here.
My wife, and then 2 of the kids. One's 12 and one is 19. And then my sister is Jill, who I played with for my senior year, which is pretty amazing. She's flying over with my niece and nephew. They'll coming in tomorrow, and then my dad and my mom will be driving over with them, and then my aunt and uncle and my cousin will also be driving over for the Friday events. My parents and my sister are staying until Sunday. And then there are a lot of softball alumni coming back, as you know. So that's we're trying to set something up for after the game to get everyone together, because because it's an early game, it used to be too difficult. So that's
How special to have your teammates back.
yeah. I mean, I know of like 5 of them, but apparently there's more, and I don't know if they're not telling me on purpose. So I don't know, because I asked and it was like on the down low, and I'm like, it'll be a surprise, I guess.
That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And some of your teammates are like my buddies too, and I'm so excited to see them.
Well, I mean, Tasha came.
Well, Tasha, I saw Tosh for
Dr. Grant's.
Dr. Grant's
right.
thing.
I saw the
and
pictures.
so she knew at that point. It wasn't released then, but she knew that it was happening. It was like secret, top secret. Yeah. You know how Tosh is.
So tell me about your family.
So my partner Emily and I have been together for 20 years. Emily played field hockey here. She was a goalkeeper and played for Beth for 1 year and then Tracy for the last 3. And so Em and I have 3 kids. We have Payson, who's 14, freshman, Evans, who's 8, and Sutton, who is 4.5, and a terror. And all of us are here. So all 5 of us flew out with Kari's family on the same flight out of Boston. And then my mom and dad are coming over from Maryland, and my sister, brother-in-law, and niece will be here. So I had a lot of teammates contact me, but because of the 50th celebration in the spring, we're trying to, no offense to your teams, but we're trying to win the battle of field hockey coming back. So I know my field hockey troop is gonna.
Well, there's a battle going on.
Oh yeah,
Between
it's
who?
on like Donkey Kong, girl.
For who?
Between how many alums can come back for the 50th?
No, I mean
celebration.
between sports.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know nothing about it.
Bring it on, softball.
I don't really know if it is anything, but field hockey's making it out to be. So.
Well, it sounds like it.
Because field hockey's competitive. I think there's about 2 to 3 sports that could beat us, and it's not happening. Field hockey is winning. Because if you know Lisa Salucci, she's making sure that happens.
And so that is May 5th through the 7th,
yes,
2023. Big celebration for 50 years of Iowa women's athletics.
So all my teammates will be rousing me and probably going to the Hall of Fame and making fun of my totally 90s picture hanging up in there because they are like over the moon. And the fact that they would consider most of them are East Coast or West Coast, not a lot of them are in the Midwest. But they were, considering like $1,000 trips out here just to see me was pretty cool, but we'll do it in the spring. And I'm happy
Plus, you'll get more time to actually sit down and talk to them. And
well, it's kind of hard because a lot of my teammates said, well, we don't want to go because your whole family's there. And like, this is such a cool, like family thing for you. And I was like, if you guys were here, you are my family. Like,
right.
It would just be my family is bigger, so, but I can't even believe it. I told these guys, I told everybody already on our Zoom calls, I've never been to a football game here.
What?
In the fall.
Yeah.
We were playing. We were either here and we were right next door at the old Grant Field, right across the street.
Or you were on the road.
Or we were on the road. I've never been inside the stadium for a full football game.
Well, what's really cool.
So this is crazy.
This is going to be amazing.
Mind blowing.
It is an incredible experience to be on the field.
Yes.
And they're all going to be cheering for you.
Make sure I don't
incredible. Trip. Yeah, no, this is going to.
In your high heels, Kari.
It'll go viral.
So fun.
If Kari Knopf wears high heels, I'll pay her $500.
Nope.
Yep, not happening.
Well, you guys savor every moment, and I think it'll probably be one of those weekends that you almost need a couple days to just absorb after you leave Iowa City. And
a couple days sleep.
And to recall your conversations and the moments.
Yes.
But
I want to remember them all.
Couldn't happen to 2 better people than more deserving, and just enjoy every single moment. And you've got an entire crew of people that are just so thrilled for both of you guys. So thank you for joining me today.
Sasha,
this was really
awesome. Thank you for doing this. This is incredible for.
This is my first podcast.
The people that follow.
You did great. You would have never known.
Right?
Like a pro.
It's because I'm not being looked at.
You guys did great. And what's really, really fun is I think just being able to tell stories and bring the 2 of you to our Hawkeye community. So it's pretty cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to
you guys.
Sasha. It was awesome.
Congratulations. And as always, go
Hawks.
Woohoo!
This has been HERkys Voice. The mission of the HERkys program is to help our Hawkeye community learn, support, and engage with Iowa women's athletics. To learn more about the HERkys initiative, visit herkys.hawkeyesports.com. Hawkeye fans, remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Once you become a Fight for Iowa podcast subscriber, you'll automatically receive the latest episodes of the Fight for Iowa podcast, the HERkys Voice podcast, Hawk Talk replays, exclusive game day content, and more. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Hawkeye Sports Network.